Good evening and welcome to On the Record, a debate-style television talk show where Bahamians will find the balanced, true and open debate they've been looking for.
This is a time for the people. This is indeed the people's time.
The fourth Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas and the country's 31st government since independence have been sworn into office, and the new government of the Bahamas has clearly hit the ground running. Prior to the May 10th general elections, the House of Assembly as we know it was dissolved, and by law, a date was immediately set to reopen on May 24th. The opening of Parliament marks the formal start of the parliamentary session, and the Queen's speech from the throne, read by Her Majesty's representative, Dame Marguerite Pinling, Governor-General, sets out the government's agenda for the upcoming session, outlining proposed policies and legislation. Tonight, we will explore the contents of that speech. The legislative agenda of the new FNM government is our topic tonight. Our guests will include Adrian Gibson, Member of Parliament for the Long Island constituency, and Dr. Daniel Johnson, former MP for Carmichael and a former cabinet minister in the Christie administration. It's all on the record. I'm your host, Jerome Sawyer. As the country looked on, a new team of legislators took office. The 54th Speaker of the House of Assembly was appointed, while a new President of the Senate took her place. The Bahamas has a long tradition of peaceful and smooth transitions in government, and this time was no different. Kyle Walkin of the R News team joins us now for a recap. Kyle?
Well, Jerome, as you mentioned, yesterday made 2 weeks since the FNM won big at the polls, and now those 39 MPs and 16 senators finally got to take their seats in Parliament. The opening of Parliament follows that May 10th landslide victory of the Free National Movement, which won 35 of the 39 seats in the House of Assembly. Yesterday's historic event saw all the pomp and pageantry that comes along with such a ceremony. The 39 MPs taking their seat in the House of Assembly and taking oath to be true representatives of the people who elected them. But not to be forgotten, the 16 senators who now occupy the upper chambers of Parliament, with Catherine Forbes Smith serving as the president. The highlight of the opening of Parliament was the speech from the throne. Read by Governor-General Dame Marguerite Pinling, the speech sets out government's ambitious legislative agenda for the current term. High on the list, anti-corruption legislation, a referendum on the creation of an independent boundaries commission, and the establishment of an office of ombudsman.
My government will, with the consent of the electorate in a referendum, constitute an independent electoral commission and a boundaries commission. Introduce term limits for prime ministers. And introduce a system of recall for non-performing members of parliament. The Office of the Ombudsman will be created to provide a direct source of relief where people have legitimate grievances due to the inactions of government or agency of the government.
The speech also outlined the Minnis administration's intention to reform the country's legal system, taking some of the power away from the Attorney General and placing it in the office of an independent director of public prosecutions.
In support of this endeavor, certain functions now performed by the Attorney General, such as the power to issue fiat authorizing the commencement of legal actions in sensitive matters or a nolle prosequi, will be transferred to Director of Public Prosecutions.
But the FNM appears to have adjusted its position on value-added tax. While on the campaign trail, Minnis stressed the party's plans to eliminate VAT from many consumer and breadbasket items. However, in yesterday's speech, there is no mention of an elimination of VAT on breadbasket items. Instead, a reduction.
My government will take action to effect a reduction on value-added tax on breadbasket items.
The speech from the throne also includes a detailed plan for Grand Bahama's stalled economy.
My government will repeal and replace the Grand Bahama Port Area Investment Incentives Act 2016 to ensure that all licensees receive equal treatment under the law. My government will focus on the development of Freeport as an offshore technology hub.
Many came out to witness the occasion yesterday, including former Prime Minister Hubert Ingraham, former Governor General Sir Arthur Folkes, and even former Baha developer Socrates Merlion. And now that all that is done, it's time for the new government to get to work. Parliament resumes next Wednesday at 10 a.m. Back to you, Jerome.
Carl, you would have been on the campaign trail with Dr. Minnis and the FNM from time to time. Is this really, in your opinion, sort of the first step in the fulfillment of many of those promises? And what will be sort of some of the challenges with such an aggressive agenda?
It's funny you say that, Jerome, because yesterday in the speech, the FNM themselves called their agenda very ambitious. They used the word ambitious because they made a lot of promises on the campaign trail, from tax breaks for over-the-hill communities, the referendum on 2 term limits for prime ministers. They have a lot of promises to fulfill, and I'm sure their supporters are going to look for them to do just that, because, as you know, the Bahamas is on a roll into, we haven't re-elected a government since 1997. So who knows, the FNM has a big task ahead of them.
Do you see a challenge, though, with so many new members within the House of Assembly and within his cabinet?
I don't think so, because they have a lot of very intelligent young men and one woman in that new cabinet. They have newcomers like Marvin Dames, Jeffrey Lloyd, Dionisio de Aguilar, great businessmen, but they also have a lot of experience in there as well. Mr. Brent Simonette, who's the former Deputy Prime Minister, former Minister of Immigration and Foreign Affairs. You have a lot of experience. Dion Folkes, who's now the Minister of Labor once again, Mr. Carl Bethel, who's once again stepped in as the Attorney General. So while they have a lot of fresh faces, they have a lot of experience in there as well. So I'm sure they're going to get the job.
At the end of the day,
it should balance out.
Yeah.
It should be.
Thanks for sharing with us, Carl. We really appreciate it. Well, we are going to discuss that aggressive legislative agenda of the new FNM government. Adrian Gibson and Dr. Daniel Johnson on the other side of the break. We are back with more on the record right after this.
On the Record is brought to you by Alive, the nation's newest and best LTE network.
Good to be alive.
With a world of offers from Alive, you can set yourself free. Buy any $99 handset and get a second handset free. Plus everything you need for both phones, all for free. It's our biggest offer ever. We are Alive.
What are you doing?
Calling the bank to order more checks.
Go to epbahamas.com and order your checks from Executive Printers.
Executive Printers. We're the authority in business and personal check printing in the Bahamas. Come in and see one of our specialists or visit us online at epbahamas.com to design and order your checks today.
10, 9, ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2,
1. Get faster internet speeds for free when you get TV, internet, and phone. Ask for Trio from Rev.
Rev, join the revolution.
Daniel Johnson, former Member of Parliament for the constituency of Carmichael and a former Minister of Youth, Sports and Culture in the Christie administration, as well as the Member of Parliament for Long Island, Mr. Adrian Gibson. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming on. Our topic tonight is the legislative agenda of the new FNM government. Earlier in the speech from the throne at the opening of Parliament, Dame Marguerite Pinling addressed the country's tourism sector, recognizing its value to the country's economy and pledged to stimulate this industry, Grand Bahama being heavily included.
Mr. Speaker and members of the Honourable House of Assembly, my government recognizes the value of tourism to the economy while being keenly aware of the fierceness of the competition in the global and regional tourism marketplace. My government will collaborate with all major tourism industry stakeholders to enhance the tourism product onshore and to promote its development throughout our islands. My government's primary goal in communications, sales, and airlift strategies will be to ensure the return on investment in all that we do. My government will work aggressively towards expanding our digital footprint by using data-driven metrics towards all efforts. My government will give greater priority to incentives or initiatives to enliven and bring excitement to downtown Nassau. My government will execute plans for the continued refurbishment of Festival Place. My government will aggressively pursue additional airlift. My government will strengthen the sales and marketing team in our network of Bahamas tourist offices across the United States, Canada, and Europe. My government will capitalize on the marketing power of social media by engaging freelance bloggers to generate content and publicity about the Family Islands. My government will launch and rebound of the island of Grand Bahama. In accordance with the template of a master strategic plan designed for Grand Bahama, accordingly, my government will establish a tourism signature identity in the marketplace for the island of Grand Bahama. My government will collaborate with strategic international partners to bring world-class tournaments and competitions to Grand Bahama.
Yesterday's speech from the throne. Gentlemen, first of all, giving me your overall impressions, was it, all that you would have wanted that speech to be, laying out the legislative agenda, speaking to some of the promises the party made on the campaign trail?
Personally speaking, I was impressed. I thought the speech was bold, and it covered much of the concerns the Bahamians have had over the years, from representation, political representation, to the economy, to education, and so on and so forth. So I was pleased with it. I've read it a couple times already, and I think all Bahamians should have an opportunity to read it. If we fulfill this agenda going forward, and I believe that we will, we can look forward to seeing a pleased populace and going back to the electorate knowing that we would have attained and achieved much of their expectations. I think the speech was a great speech yesterday.
So, your impressions on the speech?
Pretty good. Two interesting observations. First, let me congratulate you on your show.
Thank you.
It's good to see you back in frontline media, as we would say.
Yes, sir.
Let me congratulate Adrian and his team.
Thank you.
For a pretty impressive campaign. I hope we'll get to speak about it as your show goes on. But yesterday was a historic day for several reasons. First, it is the first time that we see what we call a non-Pinling acolyte sitting in the office of Prime Minister. And so congratulations also to my colleague, a friend, fellow Saxon, Bella, Dr.
I won't litigate
Dr. Hubert Minnis, for persevering.
Yes.
Minnis has persevered, a tremendous amount of adversity from within his own party, what happened in the House, what happened at various stages. And so he should be congratulated for persevering to that point and getting to the point in a campaign where he stood a chance at winning. And that's the first part you got to do, get to the point you stand a chance at winning. And he won. Let me also say, you know, thank you to our loyal supporters of the PLP and other people out there for their support, encouragement, kind words of thought. Our loyal supporters who, my apologies to some who really feel, you know, we could have done a better job, to some unwarranted errors. And, you know, I'm sorry if people felt we let them down, because the PLP has inherited a legacy, a notion that people, I think, depend on in a certain way to be present in their lives. And so we still have those four in the House. Congratulations to the Deputy Prime Minister, now the Leader of the Opposition, Philip Brave Davis, and the 4 MPs, and to those in the Senate. You know, we still have a job to do, which is to run a country. There's a huge mission ahead of us, and I think the PLP plays a major role in that. And so yesterday, although people like Minister said it's the end of the Ingram era, when Ingram had to come and save him at the end of that campaign, although Christie at times had Christie had distanced himself from the Pindling era, and of course Pindling anointed him to be the next one. Ingram and Christie, by the way, and you know, for your political history, fired that same day,
under the Pindling,
under the same circumstances, became prime ministers henceforth. But even many, many years later, 20 years hence, after they had both served as prime ministers, twice for Christie and 3 times for Prime Minister Ingram, that speech was delivered by the matriarch of the Pindling family and the fiercest political personality of her day, Dame Margaret Pindling, who was my favorite Governor General, I make no mistake about that, who replaced my mother in my life when my mother passed, who takes care of my children, of course, my former mother-in-law. But her presentation, her oration, the style and substance that was brought to the occasion says something about the political history and theology and mythology about the Bahamas and our body politic. And I hope people saw the maturity in what transpired yesterday.
So let's jump in now to the meat of the speech and your impressions on some of the legislative initiatives outlined in that speech and what it is this FNM government intends to do.
Well, you know, they really have to stick with what they promised. You know, this is where rhetoric meets reality. And it's nice to go on a campaign stage and promise some big things. We have a shorter attention span now in the body politic, and so you have to now get cracking. The issue about VAT was a huge thing during the campaign. It was unfortunate that people, you know, went out publicly and said that someone had stolen the VAT money. But of course, you know, we declared that that's not true. They wanted to eliminate VAT. You ain't gonna be able to do that. You may have the reduction on breadbasket items, but I want the public to understand that VAT is a replacement of customs duties, and so you have to titrate them away. You can't pull one away suddenly. Your revenue system could collapse on you. So we want to make sure people understand you have to wean yourself from customs, and we have already, before this election, seen a reduction of customs on 100 breadbasket items, which would lower the cost on those items first, and then you can see if you could titrate the VAT on those items. So
interesting.
That has already been done.
But before we get to the VAT question, one of the things in that excerpt we listened to was a real emphasis on Grand Bahama.
Right.
You're from a family island constituency. Grand Bahama has really buckled and faltered in a lot of ways and not been able to catch itself for a number of reasons. But from a family island perspective, but also now you're sitting as a part of government, really, do you think that those initiatives are enough to bolster and to boost that island's economy?
Well, before I answer that, Jerome, with respect to VAT, we promised during the campaign that we would seek to have VAT on breadbasket items looked into, reduced, etc. We are not yet certain as to where the VAT money is going. We've just gotten in the government some 2 weeks ago, and I am sure that the financial analysts and those are trying to make a determination as to exactly where the money was spent, etc. Right? We know that VAT was initially earmarked to pay down the national debt. Okay, and we understand the need for VAT. I don't think that the FNM has ever promised to totally eliminate VAT. Okay, but I know that we have spoken to a reduction and/or elimination of VAT with respect to breadbasket items. As to your question with Grand Bahama, I think it's a good start. You're talking about promising Grand Bahamians, you're giving Grand Bahamians hope. You're talking about in areas of tourism and promoting that island. You're talking about an industry, making doing business in Grand Bahama easier. The economy of Grand Bahama, as with most family islands, is in the doldrums. People are leaving Grand Bahama in droves. Grand Bahamians have said to me on countless occasions that they've lost hope. And I think this is a good start in the right direction. It will cause persons to be incentivized to want to come and invest in Grand Bahama. It will cause Grand Bahamians to want to stay in Grand Bahama. And so if we are following this very progressive agenda, I see Grand Bahama returning to being the magic city. Grand Bahama has lost its flair. Many Grand Bahamians would tell you that they are just totally discouraged with the state of affairs there. And I think this agenda does well for Grand Bahama.
Also under there, you would have heard about the initiatives coming in terms of tourism, the tourism product. And something that I saw that really exploded in the social media realm, this idea of using bloggers and social media to promote tourism, which is very progressive and sort of speaks to a modern way of thinking and movement. And Danny, I'm going to start with you. Do you see that as being something that can address some of the issues that we're having in tourism? We have a stalled tourism product in many instances. I mean, we're being outpaced in many areas. We're still bringing in folks, but all around us, it seems everybody's caught on to what we've been doing now for the past 3, 4, 5 decades and making it better. But do you see this as the way forward for tourism?
Yes and no. I mean, and congratulations, my childhood friend, Denisio de Aguilar. I think he'll do a good job as Minister of Tourism. We've already been using bloggers to promote tourism. Adrian's from that world. You have some great young people there. You see it there, various conventions around the world. The internet, the super highway that the internet now, it has evolved into, that is where Bahamas.com lives. And so the travel writers now are really the bloggers of the world. They're not the people who come and sip, Bahama Mamas by the pool anymore. These are people who are out there in the cybersphere. And so that's already being done. A lot of the stuff that was in the speech yesterday, I'll be honest with you and just cut right to the chase. That's stuff that is already being done, not much that innovative, not much that is really creative. To move tourism from where it is now will take a fundamental shift in certain areas. And we have proved already, I proved it with the launch, the most successful launch of our Sports in Paradise brand that we've ever seen in this region. You have to take a destination idea and make it yours. Everybody around the world knows it's better in the Bahamas. They know our brand. You don't have to tell anyone about the Bahamas. They know it's here too, except everybody got what you got now. Whereas in the old days, fellas had bauxite in the south, they had bananas, they had this, they had the other, and we had these beautiful sunny beaches with this and the other in the Bahama Mama. Well now, everybody got it. So the question is now, what do you have that no one else has?
But I think
that's going to move it forward.
Gentlemen, just put a pin in there for just a second. We're at the point of our first break. We'll pick up our discussion right after this. We're looking at the new legislative agenda of the FNM government. Adrian Gibson and Dr. Daniel Johnson are my guests. We'll be back right on the other side of the break.
This segment is sponsored by Percy's Island Game.
Love your mom with the Island Game Mother's Day giveaway. Just deposit $20 to your Island Game account to be entered to win one of 5 fabulous Mother's Day packages, including a spa day at Belamonte Spa, Sunday brunch for 4 at Luciano's, a beautiful floral arrangement, and $500 cash. Remember, drawings are every Saturday in May. You have unlimited entries and all accounts must be verified to be eligible. Love your mom some more with the Island Game Mother's Day giveaway.
Speeds for free when you get TV, internet, and phone. Ask for Trio from Rev.
Join the revolution.
For news that's happening in our country, the best place to turn is Our News.
Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight.
The biggest stories on the best station.
Helping news tonight. The government collected almost.
The Education Minister dismissed. The Bahamar Claims Committee explains how unsecured.
Giving you all sides of the equation to keep you informed.
Well, in other news, police are cracking down on
the claims of Bahamar's creditors and
police are on the scene here at a popular hangout.
Statement yesterday, Catholic Archbishop.
Watch Our News weeknights 7:30 and weekends at 7 p.m. only on RTV.
Welcome back to On the Record. Tonight we're discussing certain aspects of the speech from the throne with former PLP MP and Cabinet Minister Dr. Daniel Johnson and Long Island MP Mr. Adrian Gibson. Gentlemen, as we went into the break, we were starting our discussion really on aspects of the speech of the throne that dealt with tourism. And one of the questions is really, was there anything new and truly innovative in that speech that spoke to the tourism product? You were having a response to Dr. Johnson's assertions.
Right. No, what I think is exciting about the speech is that the government has decided to aggressively pursue airlift. Okay, we know that we have now, over the last few years, been focused on cruise visitors. Cruise visitors spend on average, what, $10, $15, $20 if they come off the boat. When someone bothers to jump on a plane and come to the Bahamas, they got to rent a hotel, rent a car, and pay for whatever other amenities they might want. So this emphasis on airlift is a major plus. Yes, it is true that there has been usage of social media, but I think with respect to bloggers, I think that's not only local but on the international scene, and with greater concentration. You see here, they talk about strengthening sales and marketing in the United States and in Canada and in Europe. This is great. And I think what has happened is we have been so much in bed with the cruise ships of late. And I don't have any issues with the cruise operators, but previous governments have not so much, in my opinion, focused on where the real money is at, and that's the airlift. So concentrating on airlift, concentrating on actually creating activities for people to do, concentrating on the family islands. I'm in the tourist business on the family islands. And I think when people come to Nassau, there's nothing to do. So you have very little in the way of activities. You go to countries like Cuba and Panama and elsewhere, and you have a lot of cultural activities. Marketing our family islands and pushing our family islands to the fore. Not saying that we leave New Providence alone, but pushing our family islands to the fore as individual islands is a cultural experience unto itself. And I think the F&M is looking at really honing in on the islands and promoting the islands.
One of the things they talked about was this downtown revitalization, which we pressed the rewind button. I have heard over and over and over again, and so little has happened. I mean, outside of the garage at the point and one or two other things, very little has happened to revitalize downtown, which is still central to our tourism product in many ways.
Jerome, you know, a few things on that. One, for the past 50 years, and the cruise ship industry is an example of it. Now you see on the weekends, we'll see 10, 15, about 10 boats could come in now to that harbor. You're looking at 25, maybe 30,000 people in port. those people have come off those boats onto the same land owned by the same 15 families for the past 50 years. So ain't nothing new about that situation to the people time. The scenario of the gateway is still not up to what it should be. That has been gone over 25 years. It has still not happened. There's nothing new about that.
Festival places
The revitalization of Bay Street and downtown is a horse that has been flogged for too long. Regular Bahamians, they won't have that no more. And Bay Street, you can't be telling regular people now you're going to revitalize a place where the people there own all the money in the country. You're supposed to be saying like what we are planning to do for Grand Bahama, what we have already set into with Carnival. Set up another port in another island with a complete experience for them that they could use. What you could see what could happen now in Acklands and Crooked Island. Another port on another island, what could happen for them. Next weekend is the Long Island Regatta. Please go down and check Adrian them out.
Yes,
and the same weekend is Cat Island Rake and Scrape. You should be able to invite a cruise ship now to go down. They get deep water on the north side of both islands to dock and ferry the people in to have that experience there. But to revitalize Bay Street again, please tell me you're joking. Please tell me you're joking.
Well, in the past...
How much time do you revitalize Bay Street?
This too, it has been my question too. What do we do? Because you're right in many ways, Dr. Johnson. A lot of those buildings are owned by families that just sit there, that are in disrepair, that I drive past them every day and I'm paying like, what are we going to do to fix this problem?
As a columnist, I previously suggested that the first thing to revitalizing Bay Street, you take traffic off of Bay Street, you put a tram on Bay Street. You, from Wednesdays to maybe Saturdays, you block off the area and you have cultural fests on Bay Street, various cultural events, and people could be engaged in activities for tourists and locals. With respect to revitalizing tourists or tourism generally in New Providence, the days where they had the Cat and Fiddle and all of these glorious bars and pubs and settings, we need to look into trying to bring some of that back. Tourists want to have an authentic experience. When I went to Panama and all the other countries I visited, I wanted to eat their food. I wanted to go to their festivals and their events. I wanted to go into the old town. I wanted to see the real thing. And they had one activity after the next. You could do one thing after the next. And I think to revitalize downtown, we have to make downtown a hub for touristic activity and economic activity, okay? And if that means that we have to engage in discussions with whomever some of the stakeholders might be downtown, we should do so. But I think revitalizing and revamping the entire tourism product, okay, is what we are speaking to here. And that includes the family islands.
One of the things that your government would have introduced would have been this, according to some, this controversial Junkanoo Carnival, which some say we should get rid of, some say we should keep. Your take? Why? I'm sure you're on the side of we should keep.
I would point people to two quick examples. One, what we did with Sports in Paradise. New ideas, new energy, new events. The people who come for that, they're not the weekend person or the person that comes on the cruise ship, stays for 2 hours, buys a t-shirt, buy a hat, hop back on the boat. That's a different tourist. That, we know that's our #1 business. But the fellows who came for FIFA World Cup, the teams came for a month. The people who come for IAAF World Relays, they come for 2 weeks. Obviously, they got to come by plane, unless they have their own boat. But these people are going to stay longer, they do more, they become a part of the fabric of your country. And these are people from places who've never come to the Bahamas. First part. The second part that you really have to look at is what do we want to be? And when you're talking about revitalizing Bay Street again, I say just tell me you're joking. Because I'm born at the base of the water tower at Fort Fincastle. That's where I grew. I born there. 20 meters off of the front door, man. The water tower been closed for 20 years. That's the most visited site in the region. But that's over the hill. That might be too close to us. So, it mightn't be that important. But don't tell me you can revitalize Bay Street and leave Fort Fincastle, East Street, Market Street, Farm Road, Mason's Addition, all them places. If you want an authentic experience, well, that's where it is.
Gentlemen, we're going to...
But it ain't going to be on Bay Street.
We've got to pause again. We're going to point of another break in the show. We'll pick up. Stay with us. We are back on the record right after this.
Internet speeds for free when you get TV, internet, and phone. Ask for Trio from Rev.
Join the revolution.
Caller ID, call forwarding, call waiting, and three-way calling.
Here's the scoop. With Rev Voice, you get more than 17 calling features for free and save $250 a year, and you can buy your kids ice cream. They'll thank you later. Cut the blue wire. Get Rev Voice. Save money.
With a world of offers from Alive, you can set yourself free. Buy any $99 handset and get a second handset free. Plus everything you need for both phones, all for free. It's our biggest offer ever. We are Alive.
Welcome back to On the Record. My guest, Dr. Daniel Johnson and Mr. Adrian Gibson. Gentlemen, in the speech from the throne, Governor General Dame Marguerite acknowledged the national skills deficit and said it must be addressed urgently. Education, to include special education, is high on this new government's legislative agenda. Government pledging to improve substandard literacy.
My government recognizes that the education and training of Bahamians are key factors in the progressive and the sustainable economic development of our nation. We must, with purpose and urgency, address the present national skills deficit, improve substandard literacy, numeracy, and communication levels in our nation, and promote greater inclusiveness in the education of our society. My government will mandate preschool training or preschool learning for all 2.5-year-olds. We will ensure the availability of adequately staffed and equipped preschool facilities in all family islands where practical. My government will enhance the provision of specialty education to ensure equity in education and employability of students with special needs. My government will establish a national apprentice scheme in consultation with relevant stakeholders. My government will expand technical and vocational education. My government will implement a pilot program for single-gender classes at the junior high school level to assist with closing the achievement gap between boys and girls. My government is committed to substantially reforming the Education Act that will allow for the establishment of a National Education Commission. A long-term goal is the end of social promotion in the school system.
Adrian, are these things enough to address the current crisis we have in education? I know this is something that is very close to you, and helping to begin to reform and to really have to raise the standard of our people?
Yes. Jerome, as a former educator, I taught at L.W. Young, Esther McFoyce, and COB for a bit. I can tell you that I believe this is a great start. I have long called for pilot programs, for example, where you separate male and female students, Because I find, as a teacher, I found that as the males matured and got into puberty, you know, they became more about trying to show off for their, you know, female classmate in many cases. And sometimes, you know, if you run the program and you separate them and you see how they do when they're in separate classes, and I've done it, the males are more focused because they're not trying to impress anymore. So I think that's a step in the right direction. Introducing more technical and vocational subjects into the high school system. Great move. Not all of us can be teachers and doctors and lawyers, and you know, some of us have to do the technical and vocational stuff. I think that's a great move in the right direction. You talk about a national apprenticeship scheme. You talk about closing the gaps between male and female students. You talk about reforming the Education Act to establish a National Education Commission. These are all great moves. I think you will see the reformation of the educational system, public school education that is, public education, if we follow this plan. One of the issues I campaigned on in Long Island related to special needs kids. As I moved from house to house, I discovered that we had a lot of special needs kids who were kept home. There's no avenue for them to learn. And I pledged that I would, one, move to establish a special needs program there with parents and teachers and try to get special needs teachers in there. I had an uncle growing up who, and we believe he suffered from autism. He could not really compete in the regular classroom, but if you talk to him, he can have a conversation with you like anyone else. And so when you look at seeking to address the special needs, because special needs could be something from dyslexia at what I call the bottom rung to Down syndrome. You know, so I think all of these are moves in the right direction. Preschool education, when you think about illiteracy in the Bahamas, people not being able to, who are mathematically challenged, I think to start at 2.5 years, it sets a child up for a running start. You know, I think if we are to focus, as our manifesto says, if we focus on science and technology and engineering, mathematics, we will be much further ahead as a country, and I think this is a move in that direction.
Danny Johnson, having sat at the cabinet table in the previous administration, this all sounds very good on paper. In the speech, certainly some reforms that people have been calling for. What is the challenge in getting these things from that speech into reality, and what are some of the challenges this administration is going to face with implementing all of these programs?
Well, it's nothing difficult to do. It takes leadership, vision, mission, goal, clear goals, and people who can get it done.
Absolutely.
So in my ministry, the Prime Minister gave us a list of things we were set out to do each year, and we got that list done by September, October. We're done. I want to first congratulate Adrian for, once again, you know, people might not know he started out as an educator, and this is where everybody starts. You know, I also want to congratulate Jerome Fitzgerald, who really did a great job in the Ministry of Education. Had some missteps later on, but did a great job in Ministry of Education. And when you look at the record of what he has done, you look at the Ed Vision book that he put out, very impressive work. And so, once again, a lot of the stuff that is in the speech for the throne from the Minister administration is nothing new to me sitting at that table. We started universal preschool education. The school, the new one that was to be commissioned now is named after a cousin of mine, Andre Wisdom, sorry. You know what's going on with the Family Island schools. You saw the things that are happening with in Andros, in West End for the, I mean, after all these years, in Long Island. And we also know that education is research and science. You have to know what you're doing, getting into people's young minds. The research tells us, however, that separating boys from girls as a policy matter may not show as big a result as you want. The biggest thing to do with the education of a child, that is success or failure, is the quality of the teacher. That's why I'd like to see people like with Adrian, like myself, I'm going to start doing some classes for young people, is the quality of the teacher. That's what makes the difference. And we got to get to the point where we realize that that's the difference. You do the research all around the world. The former Minister of Education traveled the world and looked at every program possible. That's the quality. It's a big difference for us to maintain our middle class. You need to have a properly educated population. The one thing I do like about what was in the speech is to stop social promotion. One, I think young Bahamians get out of school too soon, you know, at 15 and 16, they're not ready to do anything. They're not prepared for work, and they're not prepared for life.
To hold a job.
So you need to stop social promotion. And there are other things we could add to our educational programming that says, which is talking about vocational work. I have my car at a master mechanic right now who will make more money than any sitting at this table. Hello, he fixes Audi, VW, Porsches, yada, yada, yada. There's nothing wrong with being a mechanic.
That's a technical education.
He's a master mechanic. There's nothing wrong with that.
I want to add to what Danny said, Jerome. I know in our manifesto we spoke about the recruitment of teachers and incentivizing the best of the best to become educators. Part of the way to do that is to increase salary. Conditions must be better. But I know for a fact that we've also addressed research. Because you know, a major part of education is research. We haven't been as focused on research in the Bahamas, even at the university level. And it's spelled out in our manifesto quite clearly that as we move forward, we're going to put some emphasis on research and really Bahamianizing the curriculum, okay? Because the curriculum as it stands is in urgent need of revamping.
And I also think Jeff Lloyd will do his best to make some innovations and seems a very capable person.
Now, the speech also promises to revamp and modernize the public health system, the judiciary. It promises to enact a National Intelligence Agency, a gun and gang unit, Child Protection Act by establishing regulations to govern child registry, and the creation of the Office of Minors Advocate. Also speaking to appointing a disability inspector to assist with the monitoring and enforcing of provisions of Persons with Disabilities Act, and also wanting to implement gender-based violence national strategic plan. That's a whole lot as well when you talk about an aggressive agenda. I want to pull some of that apart. National Intelligence Agency, a gun and gang unit, Child Protection Act. These are things speaking to a crime issue. Adrian, I'm going to start with you. Are these really the things that the FNM thinks will help to begin now to erode at this crime problem that we have?
I think, firstly, I think the speech is a general overview of what's to come, right? I think there are particulars that fit under each one of these headings. I do think it's a good start. A gang, and we obviously have a gang problem in the Bahamas. We obviously have a gun problem. There's also issues with respect to children, children born out of wedlock, fathers, absentee parents, whomever they might be. I believe that this is a move in the right direction in terms of our society and addressing some of the societal concerns in addressing the crime fight. To establish a unit speaks to an understanding that we do have a gang problem in this country, that this gang problem, this gun problem, will hamper us economically. Tourists wouldn't want to come to the Bahamas if it's a crime-riddled zone. And so I think it's a move in the right direction.
Sir?
I want to remind my former medical colleague to use young fellas like Adrian them a little more to get these views out there and get them actively involved. Marvin Dames will do a good job. That's the first part. I believe
what will be his challenge, though, you think?
Whatever he allows to get in his way. But he needs to get in there. He needs to get with the commissioner. They have to be hand in hand. He understands crime and violence. He has a working knowledge of it. He does have a funny caveat, having been the security head for Sarkis's Merley, and that will plague him a little bit. He got to get beyond it, and he got to get beyond it very quickly. The gun and gang situation is a brilliant thing to go after. It needs focused attention. But once again, you don't drift too far from the vision of your forefathers. And Ingram did it, PM Christie did it, and PM Minnis is doing it now. The end of the Pindling era, all of them got together. They sat in one room. They said, to break this cycle of poverty, crime, and violence, you're going to have national service. The Israelis have done it excellently. Before Dr. Miles Monroe passed away, myself and Kendall Major, we sat with him. 2 weeks after that, he passed away. Kendall and I were supposed to go over to Israel to sit with them and see what national service is about, what it is about. I went to a Brebeuf, a Canadian college. It is in between high school and university. They take you for 2 years, them same 2 years, and we know these boys can't find a job, and they ain't prepared for life. They take you on, and they take you through a rite of passage that creates a national identity, a sense of Bahamian personality, and national pride. That is the foundation of nation building, man. We playing around with all these little hokey-pokey little fix, putting a Band-Aid on a bomb.
Gentlemen,
national service is the way to go.
We got to take a quick break. I know you want to jump in. Stay with us. We are back right after this.
With the regular season over and the top 16 teams decided, it's strictly business now. No room for error. It's either you go hard or you go home. Who will hold their nerve? Will the champions repeat, or can another take their crown? The NBA playoffs, live on Sportsmax and Sportsmax 2.
Rev, join the revolution.
Caller ID, call forwarding, call waiting, and call blocking.
I think it's time you cut the blue wire.
Cut the blue wire. Save up to $250 on your phone features with RevVoice. Get RevVoice. Save money.
We are back with more on the record. We are discussing the new legislative agenda of the Free National Movement government with my guests tonight, Adrian Gibson and Dr. Daniel Johnson. Gentlemen, there is an impending referendum mentioned in the speech from the throne. The government wants for it to be put into law, wants to constitute an independent electoral commission, a boundaries commission, introduce term limits for prime ministers, introduce a system of recall for non-performing members of parliament, wanting to provide a direct source of relief where people have legitimate grievances due to actions or inactions of government or any agency of government. Is it a good idea to bring another referendum to the people? I mean, this aside, and these things certainly are legitimate and have been things that people have been calling for, but is it a good idea to introduce or reintroduce that idea of a referendum right now?
No, I can tell you that. Not a good idea. The next part, I'm not sure who's moving that stuff in the Senate, but they got to seek a little wiser counsel on that, in my humble opinion. I can tell them from experience. Referenda are difficult in the Bahamas. Ask Prime Minister Ingram, Prime Minister Christie. It's not easy. The third part is that the issue about recalls is very difficult in a place this size and within the Westminster model and system. What does that mean? Who's going to sign this petition? You're going to have, will you have these big moneyed foreign interests say, you know, I won't build a hotel in Long Island and so I won't get rid of Adrian. Why? Because Adrian don't want the hotel built on this national park. And Adrian say, this is national park, there's only for Bahamians to build in. Well, another billionaire turns up and say, well, good, you know what we can do? I can give everybody in Long Island this $2,000 and I want you all to sign a petition to get rid of Adrian Gibson. No, that is not within our Westminster model. It makes absolutely no sense under the system in which we govern. If you want to recall someone, you do it every 5 years. And in the middle of that 5 years, you give them eternal health. And they would want to be recalled.
But what about things like a Boundaries Commission, Electoral Commission, term limits for prime ministers?
On the Boundaries Commission presently, there sits, it's a 60-40 balance between the governing side and the opposition side. Both of them have to sign off on what that is. It still is in the Prime Minister's purview to set what he wants those boundaries to be and communicate it to all his colleagues. The Electoral Commission, I could see what that wants to be with so-called campaign financing. That's not illegal in the Bahamas. I don't know how they're going to get past that or articulate what it is. See, leadership, make sure before you put something to people, you've articulated very clearly what that means. And I think they put that issue out on referenda and have not articulated and anticipated what that means. And then with the issue of 2 terms for a prime minister, well, that's what that's what Prime Minister Ingram said. And he did 3, right? If you want to do it, you just do it. If you want to serve 1 term as prime minister, just serve 1 term.
Adrian, are these things you think that we should put into a referendum, and are these things that you think the Bahamian people are ready for?
Jerome, I would be a hypocrite if I did not say that I have in the past, in another setting as a columnist, called for an independent electoral commission, a Boundaries Commission, for prime ministers to have term limits, for fixed election dates, and so on. I don't believe we're going to have a referendum immediately, but I think if we educate the masses about these various headings, what it means for a prime minister to have 2 terms only. You see it in America, and you know, we like to look at the American model as well, but we see that it is valuable to allowing others to come up and progressive leadership to come forward. I think that would be a successful referendum if we have that with the educational side of it.
Do you think that's been a problem in the past, a lack of education going into these referenda?
Yes. I mean, you look at the last two referendums. Well, let's look at the last one. That became a hot button issue. People with their own agendas pushed whatever their particular agenda was, and it caused confusion. In the gaming referendum, the problem was that the then Prime Minister claimed that he didn't have a horse in the race, and no one believed him. You had the church doing one thing, you had the government doing another thing, you had the number house operators doing something else, and here again, in confusion, you just vote no. If you're confused, you just vote no. You don't know how far this is going to go. Like there were issues with the gender referendum with respect to questions and putting a word or 2 in, right? Perhaps that word or 2 should have been added. Because whilst, and I can tell you, I voted yes, but whilst there are those who would have wanted to vote yes, or there are those who, there are persons who had concerns. And I think more consultation, more education, because otherwise, in fair, people just vote against.
People will vote against.
That's it.
Without understanding.
And I think that has been what has hampered referendums in the Bahamas. And sometimes, too, you crowd the ballot with too many different items. So if you can have a referendum, sometimes you may want to limit it to a select amount of questions. Okay, and you explain everything. You have a long consultation process, maybe even a year, 2 years out, you know, and you go to the people.
But are these things so that we really need to? I mean, going into elections, that's when it really becomes these big issues, and people speak to wanting campaign finance reform. I mean, going to election, you hear on both sides, oh, the electorate is being bought. You hear foreign interests. You hear, special moneyed interests are involved in these campaigns. Do we really need these things? Are we really going to be prepared to declare that I got $5 million from Company X for my political campaigt? Are we going to be prepared?
Everybody says that before election.
They can talk about it now, and a year out, it's like, I know about that.
What has to happen? And we got to look at the French model as well. I've read what the French have done. Either you have the state sponsor whatever, or you cap what could be given by private donors. Okay. Otherwise, you will have politicians being bought off. Okay, it's quite possible when you have a free-for-all that a politician could be bought off.
I hope that's not happening in the Bahamas.
I'm not saying it's happening in the Bahamas. I'm saying the possibility exists. But I think it levels the playing field, okay? Where someone who may not be as moneyed could also enter and be able to compete.
But as the hue and cry of, again, going into elections, you have candidates who may be very good candidates, viable candidates, may not be aligned with a particular party, but just cannot afford what it takes to run an election campaign.
Yeah, and so, but at some point, then you have to say, this way I say, unless you articulate what you're talking about in this referendum very early, you're going to get lost in what ministers call the quagmire of web.
I think
you got to be very careful. So either you articulate it up front, or brother man, don't fool with that.
I think we're going to
one soul boy get to talking about money. See, two things you can get mixed up very quick: is money and land. And if you start out, that speech from the throne yesterday, delivered beautifully by Dame Margaret, our Governor General, sets the tone for the 5 years of your administration. You have now started out with something called a promise to a referenda on an issue that you can't define.
But I would say this. You would know that Dr. Minnis, no, I know. You would know that Dr. Minnis is strategic in his approach. If you look at his past races for the leadership, you see an organized, strategic approach to those things, even with the election. I believe that this year is just, like I said before, just the overview. The meat will be added to the bones. What each thing means, what each item what the direction that will be taken, we will find it out in due course. If you had the Governor General reading every single thing, she would be reading up to now.
We'd probably still be sitting there.
So this is just a generalization. But I believe that when the time comes, you will see the educational side of it. And I think that the public will see how it will manifest itself.
One of the areas I want to discuss too is public health, and speaking to a modernized public health care system. Dr. Johnson, I'm going to talk to you first on this because you would have come from in the belly of this public health care, but also looking at NHI, as National Health Insurance, and how the FNM intends on moving forward with that. I want to first speak to the state of the public healthcare system. I've had occasion to go into Princess Margaret and to see those facilities, and it pains me every time I have to go there.
Well, the first part, we have a pretty functional healthcare system set up with it. When I came into medicine, there was 120 clinics spread across 30-something islands and about 15 keys. And you had to go. I've been to every clinic in the Bahamas, every single clinic, when I was the head of the Healthy Lifestyle Unit for the Ministry of Health. So kudos to those who deliver health care. That's not an easy part of a human and social function, the first part. Because I know people watch General Hospital and then they think they come into that. You're not. I mean, real healthcare is very tough work. It's done in real time on real people with very severe problems. And in hospitals, things don't always go well. That's one of the things. We have improved year upon year, however, on the facility. The first thing is the facility you work on, the place, the space. It has improved. I started out at PMH 28 years ago, right? When the dispensary was on the porch over in the back by where the administration is, man. On the family islands, those places have improved. Instead of the nurse having to do everything, you now have at least a visiting doctor. We almost got to the point where I think under Gomez, every family island had a doctor. That's a great improvement for us. The content then of the delivery has gone up. It has been Bahamianized. You got excellent doctors, nurses, clinicians. Everything is really, it has gotten better. What happens now is the management and sustainability of your system. So every time you come, we can hit a quality benchmark on your experience of healthcare. We have to improve upon. That's where we got to go now. That's a different skill set that I don't think we have concentrated on yet. We haven't perfected yet. It can take a little more time. It's going to take some really brilliant minds and energetic people who are willing to devote their life to that task. But national health insurance, you know, see, the PLB did NIB then. We did the Royal Bahamas Defense Force then, College of the Bahamas then. We're now coming back to say, now the next thing to do, you do national health insurance. Meaning that not you're going to have a perfect healthcare system, but everybody has access to the same quality of healthcare that we could provide. The best that we could provide, you have access to it. That's all that really means. People get mixed up in another conversation. We did from COB to now the University College Bahamas, which I didn't see talked about in the speech from the throne, but that is so significant to us because now you can get a university education at home. And that's going to change our whole national dialogue because we are now, after me and Adrian Rao, we can send now down to the university for the researchers to fact check and proofread and refine this so we could come back and say, boy, you know, Jerome, this is actually the case and this is what we should be doing. That's where a national plan will be housed.
Yeah. I want to talk specifically to national health insurance. What is differing, in your opinion, from what the PLP was attempting to implement and what now the FNM administration is attempting to implement? I think it spoke to it briefly in the speech and dealing with catastrophic health care.
Right. The PLP had only looked at primary level health care with respect to national health insurance. The FNM is forecasting developing the program to the point that you take into account secondary and tertiary level health care. Those diseases that were not initially covered, you know, you've got cancer and those other ailments that people may have that the version that was being rolled out did not take into account. And I think whilst I think the FNM is also going to strategically roll out national health care in a phased rollout, but that would also account for the catastrophic health concerns of Bahamians. You know that we have issues in the Bahamas with obesity. And you know obesity leads to heart disease and many other ailments. And so we are looking at this holistically, okay? You can't have national health insurance when you're just addressing the primary issues, or what we call the minor issues, okay? And there are persons out there who lack health insurance, but they're suffering from ailments that could be life-altering or that they can die from. I think that's what the FNM's outlook on it is.
Might I say just a quick caveat to that? What we were doing is in phase 1, you would do primary health care. Along with that, we had already approved a $25 million fund for catastrophic health care. Along with that, the improvement of facilities have already begun and are well underway. And so it is a very comprehensive approach. However, we also went one step further and hired the #1 health promotion execution firm in the world, along with a gentleman, I won't call his name, who is really the premier architect of what's happened in South Africa, some great healthcare systems, Canada, some other places, New Zealand, Australia, to advise on how you manage the rollout. And I'm hoping, I know Dwayne Sands got enough sense and acuity, mental acuity, to carry on parts of that rollout and to speak with Perry Gomez and Darvel and those as to what we're doing. Why? Because we have been doing this for a long time. And actually, I want to say to Bahamians, we've had universal health care for a long time. We just ain't know how to pay for it. So we've been telling you it's free, and we've been charging you from somewhere else.
We are out of time. And
but you got universal health
this last minute now to wrap up. Dr. Johnson, any closing comments from you as we prepare to
for me, honestly, Jerome, once again, congratulations to you. You know, congratulations to this country, man. We're still the best little place in the world. Make no mistake about it. After the big game is done, to me, you know, elections like Super Bowl games, you know, I really want to win. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. There are no awards for second place.
Yes.
And so we want to congratulate the minister-led government. I say what he's been through, all the difficulties he had to go through to get there. Congratulations to them. My apologies to our supporters. I wish we could have done more. I think we will do more in the very near future. Congratulations to young men like Adrian Rose. I hope they use them in area of expertise that they have to promote what's happening in the family of islands. The family islands are being left behind. Yeah, and if you're serious about it, you got to bring them forward. These are the kind of fellas who could get that done for them. Let them do it. And the last thing I want to say to our people, to our country, you know, what Timothy Gibson said to all of us, lift up your heads, Bahama land. Lift up your head. That's the first phrase of our national anthem. Why? You can't see nothing with your head down.
Absolutely.
It's chin up now. We're moving forward. And those people who are serious in this country, it's access and opportunity. Don't hold people back. I would still be an advocate for young people. I can be out there doing my medical work and be an advocate for young people. I'm still going to work with this party. I'm still going to do some really great things. The Children's Emergency Hospital, where my mother was for half of her life, working as a matron there. I'm going to do some work with them. Everyone in the Bahamas, lift up your head and lift up your hand and help somebody.
Adrian?
I want to, Jerome, thank you for having me, and congratulations on the show. This is a wonderful show. I've seen it a couple of times.
Thank you.
On the trail. Danny, listen, it was a pleasure being on the show with you. We have had some good talks off camera as well, and I hope we can continue to do so. But I want to say to our people that we have an opportunity for a new day in the Bahamas, and we should all contribute towards that new day. Let's not just rely on the government. I say to the people of Long Island, I want to thank you sincerely for giving me an opportunity to represent you in the Honorable House. You know, it's nothing like when you representing your hometown. This is where my heart is, this is where my family lives, this is where my business is. And so I feel it the greatest privilege to serve Long Island, and I will not let my people down.
Thank you very much, and I put it out there, we hope to bring on the record to Long Island one day.
I look forward to
All
it.
right, now see, I got
I look forward to that. Come on down. Come on down.
We're coming down to Long Island. Well, we hope you have enjoyed our show tonight. Special thanks to Adrian Gibson, Dr. Daniel Johnson, my producer, technical staff, and of course you, the audience, for watching. Join us for more On the Record next week. Once again, I'm your host, Jerome Sawyer. See you next time.